Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia SBDC's webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. This series is designed to take a look at tools and techniques to help small businesses take their business to the next level. Today's webinar is Managing Your Time and Team Using Google Calendar. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, web and mobile strategist, author of So Low Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategies Explained, and president of W3 Consulting. Eventually, Ray, I will get that out without pausing. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for having me here on the Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web series. Today, of course, as Tracy said, we'll be talking about managing your time and team using Google Calendar. And just to reiterate what Tracy was talking about, some housekeeping items. First, the questions panel is there on the sidebar, so feel free to ask questions. I'm here to answer your questions and help you. So by all means, pop in, let Tracy know that you have a question, and I'll be happy to answer any questions as I am able to. If you do have questions after the webinar, feel free to go ahead and send those at my Twitter profile, which is at W3 Consulting, and go ahead and hashtag those Beyond Google so I know what we're talking about. As well, feel free to go ahead and follow at Virginia SBDC, which is the Virginia SBDC Network's Twitter handle, where you can find out more information about their programs and other resources for small businesses, as well as their notifications for upcoming webinars. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the agenda for today. Today we'll be going over Google Calendar. I just want to give you a rough overview of the interface so you know what we're looking at. Next, we're going to talk about some tips on team management just generally. I think it's really important for people to understand team management, and then I'll be able to blend that into the context of Google Calendar really once we get into the tool. So I'll take us right directly into the tool. I'm going to show you how to set up a calendar, show you about some sort of cool tips and tricks about managing the system just to make the whole entire system work well for you. And that way we can talk about resource management as well as time and team management for your business. Okay, so let's just really get into the interface very, very quickly. So beyond setting up a Google Calendar and having it all up and running, this is pretty much what a Google Calendar will look like in terms of a screenshot of the main interface. So when you open it up in your browser, you're going to see on the left-hand side the either Google logo, but if you have the business version, which is now called Google Apps for Work. So a couple of days ago, Google changed Google Apps for Business to Google Apps for Work. So if you see the name change, nothing has changed about the system, just its name. So now it's Google Apps for Work. And so if you have Google Apps for Work or just a Google account for your business, now you'll see either your logo or whatever you put in that top left-hand area, or the Google logo itself. Below that, you're going to see a link for Google Calendar. And so on the left-hand side panel, Google Calendar is split up into about 5 pieces. Okay, so you have this left-hand side panel here where you can create new events and so on and so forth. You can see that sort of slimmed down calendar that's been created for you. My calendar is below that. Other calendars, which are things people have shared with you. U.S. holidays, as you can see, is shown there. In that upper space, basically this space above the main calendar view, you have the Today button, which takes you back to today. You have some information about going forward and backwards, either by week or month or day, depending upon which view you have set up. It tells you the range of days that you're actually viewing the Google Calendar in, which is really helpful because it tells you what today is and what range you're looking in. You can look at the calendar in many different views, and we're going to go over that right now. This is showing day, week, month, 2 weeks, and agenda. This is the More button, and the More button just gives you some drop-down selections for being able to get around the system. Again, I know I'm going over this quickly. It's just so that you have a good generalization, because when I go into it again in depth when we get to the next portion, you'll have had it sort of in your mind's eye. This is a drop-down portion. We have the gears icon, and this little gear icon is very important because it takes you to all of the other management settings related to Google Calendar. Here in the main section is basically the view that you've chosen here under day, week, month, or the custom selection and agenda. So here what you're going to see is whatever you've selected up here. And you can see that Google Calendar grays out, sort of colors the day in which you're looking at it. So if you're using any other function other than day or agenda, you're going to see that particular portion sort of grayed out a little bit, but that's actually the highlighted section. And so you know what day it is. And Google Calendar does this really wonderful thing, which is it tells you what time of day you're in when you are looking at a particular day, week, month agenda. It tells you, I'm sorry, when you're in the day and agenda section, day, week, and agenda section, it actually tells you what time of day it is. It gives you this little arrow on the left-hand side and then the line in the actual day, so you can actually quickly tell what time it is right now in the course of your day, which is really helpful. In the top portion here, you can see that it tells you the time zone you're in. So in this particular case, it's set for GMAT -5, which is Eastern Time Zone, correct, right? And if you change that, you can obviously see the time change up here in the top left-hand corner. This is frequently an issue with teams that are in multiple time zones. And so when scheduling things, I frequently have to tell people, look at that little portion there and tell me what time zone it's saying. Because if we're scheduling something in Eastern Time and yours says Pacific Standard Time, or whatever the time zone is, then there's going to be a time difference, and you need to make sure that you're aware of that. So always look up there to make sure that you're working with your team in the right time zone. Across the top here, you're going to get the individual dates, and this happens across all the views. So if you go to week or month or day, it's going to show you them in the most reasonable place. And then in this portion of the screen, you have the all day events, basically events that are not tied to a specific time of day, but just happen to fall into the all day events. So that goes there. And then, of course, the hourly and specific timed events, which show up in these, in sort of the Excel spreadsheet style cells across this area. Okay? When we go over to the final section of Google Calendar's interface, you see over here a tasks section. And that's if you have the Google Tasks enabled within your Google Calendar system, but any of those plugins that you add that are task management oriented will show up here in the right-hand side panel. Moving along, you can see that in the My Calendars area is where you're going to see all the calendars that you have created and you've been given read-write access to. So what that means is that if you can't write to the calendar, if you can only see it, then the calendars are going to show up under the other calendars. If you're given an opportunity to go ahead and edit that calendar in any way, shape, or form, they're going to show up in this circled area. Okay? I'm really going to encourage you to go ahead and look at the tasks area and really look at how you can utilize that tool as it relates to Google Calendar to start with, but potentially other areas of your business. So Google Tasks in the Google Calendar interface pretty much gives you this time and task management interface that's really beautiful. I mean, it's just seamless. So what you can do is you can create a list that just says, calendaring tasks or scheduling tasks, and you put them right there in your calendar view. And so when you're in Google Calendar, you're now dealing with those things that are scheduling or time related, and therefore you're not going to miss anything because it's always in view. I really like having it there so that I can really look at things and make sure that those are being taken care of while I'm actually in the calendar. So if I have to schedule something in my calendar, well, why not have the task list of things that need to be done there in the calendar next to me right there in the calendar view? So just, a mild suggestion regarding keeping those calendaring and scheduling tasks in plain view while you're using your Google Calendar. Now, some quick tips on team management. And so I'm putting this section in here, tips on team management, because I really think that a lot of these blend into a lot of the time management issues we're going to talk about in the Google Calendar interface. So I want to go over them briefly, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. This material is all based on the book called Empowerment Takes More Than a Minute by Dr. Kenneth Blanchard. And so if you don't know who Dr. Kenneth Blanchard is, Ken Blanchard is a longtime business expert and author of many different books. And this particular one he co-authored, and it's called Empowerment Takes More Than a Minute. And it's all about this concept of an empowerment game plan to help build a team that's going to be engaged, that's going to really do well by you. and I think this really applies to every team, whether it's a solopreneurship where you're a team of one or if it's a team of many. You really have to understand the culmination of these tools to be able to make sure that you're working in the best possible way as a team. So, because even as a solopreneur, understand that you have vendors and you have other people that you're interacting with, and most likely you have outside contractors and independent consultants and those kinds of things. And you really do have to treat them as a part of your team. Don't just think because you're a solopreneur you have to do everything by yourself and you have to, everything is on your head. You really have to think about it from a position of leadership and how to make sure that you're going out there and delegating and managing effectively. So here we are. The first step that Kenneth Blanchard talks about, so this book is done actually in an allegorical style, so it's a story, and the story talks about this particular team that's going through the process that Ken Blanchard is attempting to espouse in the book. So sharing information with everyone is this first step. And what he talks about under the sharing information section is that you need to share performance information about the company. That is, the company needs to help the people, the team, understand the business. This happens very frequently in business that they don't share information about how the business actually operates. What's the business model? How do people actually function within the business? I mean, really help people understand the business, and then the people will help the business. So sharing information with people, this of course builds trust and makes sure that people stay trustworthy by having that level of transparency. Setting up self-monitoring possibilities, he talks about. And this is the idea that, being able to self-criticize, basically giving you the ability to say, these are the things that I'm doing, these are the things that I'm accountable for, and then these are the things that I'm making progress toward, and these are the things that I need to improve upon. Those are really important parts of the process. The next thing he talks about is the idea of viewing mistakes as learning opportunities. I learned this a long time ago, but I really found it to be important when I was doing a lot of management training in the late 90s. And what we learn is that if we view mistakes as something as negative and something to be penalized, then what happens is we demotivate our team. And especially when it comes to time management, we want to be able to make sure that we're making and utilizing the best of the time that people put in their offices. They spend a good portion of their lives in the business. Why shouldn't they enjoy and be productive in that time? And so even if the business is not necessarily time-bound in the sense of billing hours, it certainly is time-bound in the sense of being productive in the time that we spend in the business. So we really need to look at them as learning opportunities, positive, productive, motivation-driven opportunities. Okay? Then he talks about the idea of breaking hierarchical thinking, and that helps people behave as owners. So this is the idea of elevating people's responsibility to a level in which they take personal accountability for their own actions, but also basically taking ownership of the business to the level in which they are given autonomy to work. And that really takes us to the next point, which is creating autonomy through boundaries. So many times business owners are very, very fearful of giving away some level of autonomy about their business because they believe that they're going to lose power. And so it's a power struggle for many of us because if we're the founders, we sometimes have the problem of letting go of, as I usually call it, my baby. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I have to give control or less power of my baby. No one wants to do that as a parent, and but it's really necessary. At some point, your child gets legs, and that can stand, and it walks, and it talks, and it starts to take over by itself, but always within boundaries. So what we want to do is we want to be able to help our team understand what's the little picture issues, what are the minute details, what's the big picture here, and figuring out what their goals and roles are, as Ken Blanchard terms them. If we understand their goals within the organization, and if we understand their roles within the organization, then we can start to define the values and rules that underlie everything that they do. Okay? Once those rules and procedures are defined, as well as the values, then we can really understand how to support them, basically empower them through giving them the autonomy they need within those boundaries. So a good example would be creating autonomy through boundaries is saying, here goes a company credit card for purchasing, mailing, and shipping issues, so that when someone does a sale and have fulfillment orders, you can ship these items using this particular credit card in the company, and of course it would be set up so that it would only be able to be used with certain things with a certain set of requirements and sort of yada yada yada. There might be a purchase order necessary to be signed off on by you or someone else. But the point is that person knows now the criteria in which they can use the company credit card, and there are fail-safes in place, and then of course you're going to provide training. You're going to be able to show them how to use it, walk them through it a couple of times, and then let them go, let them go do their job. And of course they're going to be held accountable for the results of what they do, and you can create all kinds of things that help create those. But really, autonomy through boundaries is really important for a business owner, because as soon as you replace yourself, that function within the business, you're now freeing up your own time to be able to do more income-producing, revenue-generating business activities that you otherwise are wasting time on because you have someone who should be doing it that's not you. Okay? So really, really important. Finally, the third part of the puzzle of the empowerment game plan is replacing the old hierarchy with a self-directed team. Okay, so self-directed leadership. This means that you need to provide direction and skills training for the empowered teams. That is, the more the teams have direction and skills training, then they themselves can go inside, go into the office or go into the retail shop every day and manage themselves. Provide support and encouragement for change. That is, mistakes are learning opportunities. That means that change is good. That means that you're going to support them when they make mistakes by giving more training and more direction. Okay? Now, after that, they can do what they need to do. Once you've given them what they need, and that doesn't mean micromanagement. That means them reporting back to you when these things are needed. But it also means you sort of having your ear to the ground to be able to provide them with that assistance when necessary. Diversity is important. Remember that. Gradually give control to the teams, so it's not something that you just hand over the keys to the family car the moment the child has arms and legs and is of age. You help them. You take them out with them in the car. You drive around with them. You show them how the car operates. Tell them what will happen when the car breaks, if the car breaks down, and if there's a AAA membership and those kinds of things. And then you're going to realize that there's going to be some hiccups along the way, and one, prepare for them. Any good lawyer will say, prepare for the things that you're going, that you can avoid. So prepare for the disasters, prepare for the tough situations to come, and have a game plan, and then go for it. Just gradually give control to the teams, and you'll find yourself slowly but surely having greater and greater success within the business, because self-directed teams have this great sense of ownership, they have greater camaraderie, and they work far more efficiently and effectively when they work well together because of this sense of empowerment and autonomy. So really, it all runs together. It starts to bleed together in terms of concepts. But remember, be transparent by sharing information with the teams, with the members of the business. Make sure that you give them enough responsibility and accountability within the structure that's comfortable for the business, not necessarily comfortable for you, but comfortable for the business. That is, it's not providing the business with too much risk, but also enough that the teams feel like they have some control over their lives, because they don't want to feel like they're just slaves to the business. Then create these self-directed teams. Some people call them divisions or departments or groups, teams, whatever they might be. You figure out what these committees are of self-directed teams and help them sort of figure that out. And as they move forward, you're going to have a stronger team. Okay, so that's really the Empowerment Takes More Than a Minute Empowerment Game Plan. If you have any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them. And now we're going to segue into and how that really helps in a calendaring perspective, managing a time and team in a calendar perspective, because a lot of this stuff can be given over using a time-bound system. So let's go hop into the Google Calendar interface and see what we're talking about here. So here I am in the Google Calendar interface, and I'm going to try and, there we go. So now we're in full screen. Whoops, I just took us out of full screen. We're going to go back into full screen. There we are. So as you can see in the original screenshots that I had taken, I cut out the very top here. So you can see that I'm in a non-Google Apps for Work instance, and this instance is just a sample account that I've created so that I can show you around the system. And here is the same exact interface that we've talked about before. The only thing I've turned off for now is the tasks area, so you don't see the tasks management section on the right-hand side portion. I just did that for purposes of so that you can actually see the site in a little bit larger perspective. Whenever you come into Google Calendar, you can see on the left-hand side the calendar link. When you click on that, it's going to, of course, take you hopefully back to the Google Calendar interface. So if you, for some reason, get into some particular spot and you want to get back out, go ahead and click on the calendar name, the word, and it should take you back to Google Calendar here in your regular interface. So the one that you have is set as default. Right below that, you can see that you have a Create button. The red Create button gives you the ability to create a new Google Calendar event. And so in that case, it opens up the full Google Calendar event page. I'm going to show you that in just a moment, but I just wanted to show you what it does. When you drop down on the arrow next to it, you have the Quick Add. And the Quick Add, of course, gives you the ability to quickly add an event to the calendar. It does it somewhat in a natural language perspective, meaning that with the example below it, dinner with Michael, 7 p.m. tomorrow. I'll show you a little bit about how that works momentarily. So the other way that you can quick add is actually just by clicking in any spot on a calendar. So if you click on this in the 2-week perspective, I clicked it on Sunday, August 31st. It goes ahead and gives me the quick add there. If I were in the day perspective, I would just have to click on the portion of the day, and you can see I clicked on 9 a.m. on today, and of course it'll open up and give me the ability to describe what, that is the description of the event, and it already has given date time for me to be able to do that. Okay, so let's go over starting with just creating a regular event. So I'm going to go into the week format here, and here we are. We are in the calendar. As I told you before, the arrow shows us today and the time, and so say that I set up a conference call at 2 p.m. I'm going to click on the 2 p.m. You can see here that by default, Google Calendar actually dedicates an hour for every meeting unless you tell it otherwise, and I'll show you how to do that in the future. And so what happens is we are given the date and the time frame, which is 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., and now it's going to ask me for a description. In the description, I'm capable of answering not only what, but where. So it's a little bit confusing because you can just put in where you're going to be meeting as well as what. So in this particular case, I'm going to say meeting, I'll say conference call, as I said earlier, conference call with Tracy at, and then I can put a phone number, so I can put my phone number. And if it's my phone number, then in my little lingo, I know that that's going to be someone's calling me. So Tracy's going to call me at 2 p.m. All right? So in this particular case, note that I put at, and then I put my phone number. Look what happened. Where got filled out in the Google Calendar interface as the location. If I put another location, any location, then it would attempt to find that location and add that into the system. So if I do put in this particular office space, let's put in 933 North Kenmore, and there we are. It's my office. Click on that. Notice that it gives me a drop-down menu, and now the drop-down menu is automatically trying to calculate that. The reason why Google Calendar does this is that if you have this engaged with any other of the Google Maps and you're logged into the same account, Google Maps will start to track this information against the information that you need and help you define where you need to go faster. Also, if you have Google Now enabled, Google Now is another product that Google uses, and if you install, it's natively installed on Android phones. So if you have an up-to-date Android operating system on a phone, then your Android phone, your Google-based Android phone, is going to, when you're logged into it, it's going to tell you, you open up the Google app and you can make some selections and say, tell me when I need to leave for this meeting at X time. Well, Google Now will then pop up a message on your phone and say, hey, by the way, you need to leave by 1:15 in order to get to this 2 o'clock meeting in Arlington, Virginia. Okay, so really powerful tool if you make sure that you add these addresses into the interface. Now, sometimes it's a little tricky because you have to make sure that you put enough information into the where. Just remember that if you're adding it into the interface here, it gives you the drop-down. So just let Google do that when, just pick it from the drop-down and you're good to go. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but your Google app on the Apple iOS platforms also has Google Now built into it. All you need to do is log into, install the Google app. It's called Google, that's it. And once you install the Google app, you'll go ahead and be able to enable Google Now's notification tool, which tells you when to leave before a meeting. Really, really powerful tool, and I use it every day because otherwise I wouldn't get to meetings on time. So very, very powerful. So here in this particular case, I'm going to just move this back to being my phone number, and voila. For some reason, it believes that that phone number exists in West Plains, Missouri. That's interesting. So click Save here, and now here goes the event. Now the event is colored blue, and that's because that's the default color of my calendar. You can see that that matches here. And so again, going back to time and team management, you can have here in your My Calendars every single person in the company add you as read-write access to their calendar. So you can see all of the people in your company, their calendars right there, and you can actually color code them. This is really awesome because then you can see each of the colors of the individuals, and that can be the clue. I'm blue, you're red, Sally's green, so-and-so is brown. And when you're looking at the calendar in order to be able to schedule meetings, now you can quickly and easily figure that out, who's where, when, and what spaces are mutually available for us. So if I wanted to change my native color to red, you can see that's easy to do. You just drop down menu, go to the color panel here. You can also choose custom colors. So if you have a lot of people in the company, you have thousands of colors to be able to choose from that are gradations of every color in the spectrum. Okay, so don't think that you're limited to just the colors that they have in this 4x6, the 24 colors that they offer you in this section. You have a lot more colors available to you. Okay, so say I have this event, but it's just my calendar I'm looking at, and I want to give it a different color. It's a really important conference call, and I want to make sure that I don't forget it. Well, in that case, I could turn it red, and so now if I have only blue calendar items in my default calendar, and the big red one is sticking out, then voila, I'm going to remember that particular one. Okay? Now, once I've created the event in the week and day arenas, so the day and week views, you can see here that I can actually drag and drop this event to anywhere else on the calendar. So say I get a call at 1:30 and Tracy says, hey, I can't talk to you right now at 2 o'clock. Could you move it to Friday at 10 a.m.? Well, easily done. I just drag and drop it, and everything in the background goes ahead and fixes it. Now, in a team environment, if I dragged and dropped that and Tracy was actually a member of this particular, a guest on this event record, then it would automatically pop up a window that asked me whether or not I wanted to notify the guests of the change. So in this particular case, I'm moving it in Tracy's calendar if she is also a Google Apps for Work or a Google Calendar user, a Google user in general. So if I know that about Tracy, that she's a Google account user, then I don't need to send her a notification unless you really think it's necessary, because she's the one who told me about the change. But if I had other people in the calendar record, that did not know that the change was happening, then I would say yes, and it would send them a notification of the change. Or if they weren't within the Google Calendar system, they would need the new event record attached to it to update their system. So just a quick scan through your mind of, is this person also a Google Calendar user? Do they need to be notified of the change of the event? Okay? If that's the case, yes, and go on with your day. If not, don't send an email that you don't need to have to send. So it knows that really, how to effectively manage those notifications, which is great. And you can see here when you hover over an event like this one, it gives you the little equal sign. When you hover over the equal sign, it gives you the ability to then expand or contract an event's time frame. So that conference call with Tracy is only needed for a half hour. I just hover over the equal sign that shows up, the little tab sign that shows up at the bottom of the event, and I can go ahead and drag it to a longer or shorter time frame based on the amount of time that's necessary. So though it defaults to an hour in my system, I want it to be only half hour for this event, so I go ahead and just shrink it up, and it closes up to a quick time frame. All right. Note that when the event is created, events take up the space minus about 10%. That 10% here is for overlapping events. So say you need to create another event at 10:30, or more importantly, say that you need your team to have a piece of key information about this event, but you do not want to share it within the notes of the event. So let me go back here just for a point of reference. If you click on the event, single click on the event, or click on the name of the event, it will take you into the master event creation page. And I'm going to go over this momentarily. I just wanted to show you some of these little interface tricks. If you go into this full event page, you can see that there's a description. This description is not really description, but notes. I consider this field up here the description. It's the event description. Down here is really the event's records notes. So I'm writing notes about this event, and therefore this is what the event's all about. Okay, so I'm in the event, and in the description, i.e. the notes, I may make a note to say some information about this particular event, right? So this is really important information that everyone in the event needs to know. However, in my team environment, I might say, you know what? I don't want Tracy to know about this particular piece of information about this event, and so I want to be able to tell my staff about this information, noting about the event. So what I typically do is I usually write in note conference call with Tracy, and then put in the message that I want to give to my staff. So what happens is you can see that there's the event that's there, but now for the event that I only want my staff to know about, I can go ahead and add that to a different calendar, or I can just leave it in my native calendar, which is also shared with my staff. Okay, so they can see, oh, there's a note about this conference call. If we're joining the conference call, we should definitely read this before we hop on the call, because this is pertinent to it all, which might be, I'm going to make these 3 points, and I want you to make these 3 points because I don't want to ramble on too much. So you guys talk about these issues, I'll talk about these, and then we'll be happy. Okay? So really great way that you can actually manage information in 2 different layers. I mean, you could do ad infinitum layers, I guess, here, but really one note will probably be good enough so that you can share that information with your team internally while not cluttering up the entire interface with things. But that's what that 10% space is for, is so that you can add new event records. So if you needed to add another event for someone else in the company, say they had a 10-to-1 meeting, with sales client, let's put client, potential client, there we are, and you wanted to be able to do that, you can go ahead and add that meeting into the interface, add all the information. You can add that to their calendar so that you can just see that it's there. Okay, so really, really cool way so that you can continue. You can see that the events just go ahead and layer themselves over one another, and it's really, really easy. Okay, so back to creating events. So if I click on the Create button, we go ahead and open up an untitled event, and we can create the event pretty quickly and seamlessly. I can title the event, and then I can add any notes and other supporting information. Now, there are certain plugins, which I'll show you later, that you can add on to the system to be able to allow you to add Google Drive documents to this, this particular one. You can see right here at the bottom of the screen it says want to add attachments, learn how to enable the lab, and I'll show you that momentarily. So you can actually add Google Drive documents. So that could be a presentation like the one I'm using here that I was using earlier and I'm using for this presentation, Google Drive document in terms of a Google Docs, Google Spreadsheet, other forms, as well as any other file format that literally can just be put into Google Drive and linked into this particular arena. So we can go ahead and add notes and other supporting information as well as attachments. Okay, so those would all go here, and that might be an agenda for the meeting. That might be things that you want to remember to take with you. You know, so if you're going to an important meeting, don't forget the sales proposal, printed sales proposal. Don't forget your presentation laptop. Don't forget your presentation remote. Those kinds of things. Really, really useful. We already talked about event location, so as long as you're typing in the appropriate event location, then Google Now will give you the recommendation. Up here we have date, and so we can choose a date, a beginning date, beginning time. Note that it gives you a drop-down menu of times and dates on the half hour. You can, of course, change that. So if this meeting starts at 1:05 p.m., it will go ahead and give you that immediately to 1:05 p.m. It gives you the ability to type that in. There's no spaces between the date and the time and the AM or PM, just FYI. So the from time goes to the until time, and you can choose whether it's an hour, half hour, 15 minutes, whatever. You know, again, this shows you on the half hour, but you could, of course, change this to be a 20-minute meeting by just, you know, going ahead and putting in the exact time there. Okay? So, I'm sorry, it's an hour and 10-minute meeting. So you can change to specific times or just choose the on the half hour, hour and a half kinds of things, and then of course the end date time. Now if this time zone is different, you can go ahead and separate and start and end time zones. So say for instance the starting and ending time zone was going to be different for some reason because you were traveling, you could go ahead and do that for those things as well. If it's an all-day event, you just click on the all day, and then of course the exact times go away, and that means it'll show up at the top of the screen where I showed you earlier. If it's not an all day, then you're going to put in specific times. If it's a repeat event, you can go ahead and click on the repeat checkbox, and the repeat checkbox gives you a wide variety, but not exact variety, all the machinations that you might need for repeating. But for the most part, it works for about 95% of repeats. There are one or two limitations that it has, but for the most part, it works for me. So, you have daily, every day. I'm sorry, every weekday. So you can choose every weekday, Monday to Friday, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every Tuesday, Thursday. So you have those options. And then under weekly, say for instance, it's not every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, not Monday to Friday, and not every Tuesday, Thursday. You would just choose every week and then choose the combination. So maybe it's every Saturday and Thursday. Well, you just choose every Saturday and Thursday, and then you choose a start date for that particular item to start and go from there. Okay, so even though the option might not be under these first four in terms of daily, every weekday, Monday to Friday, you can actually do that under the weekly. Under monthly, you have a day of the month and a day of the week. Okay, so in this particular case, you can choose every 1 month on a particular day of the month. It's already chosen the day of the month because you've chosen it on the calendar. Okay. So sometimes if you're starting a repeating event where you are starting it on the non-repeating schedule, you're likely going to have to create that event separately the first time, just to make it clean. So the first event will be a non-repeating event, and then schedule a second event that's going to be the ongoing repeating event. I know the system can sometimes manage it, but I see a lot of people get it wrong too frequently to say that it works 100% of the time to be worthwhile. So set up that first event. If it's not going to be on time, the exact time, different time, then set up the repeating event afterward. Okay? So I have a birthday and holidays calendar for everyone in my business life, and so it's like birthdays, special dates, anniversaries, those kinds of things. I have a yearly calendar, and that yearly calendar is set up so that every 1 year it goes ahead and never ending reminds me. So every year on September 4th, it goes ahead and tells me that so-and-so's anniversary is today, or every so-and-so's dog's birthday is today, if that's an important date in that particular person's life. So once I've created that yearly repeat, it goes ahead and tells me annually on September 4th, it's going to repeat this event every time. Okay, great. On the right-hand side panel, you can see there's an add guests function, and here I can just add people's email addresses. And so if I wanted to add Tracy and Tracy's email address was in there, it would drop down menu to auto filter to her email address, and I can go ahead and add her here. Okay. Then the guests can have some options. They can be able to modify the event, they can invite others, and the other guests can see the other guests who were invited. You can take those all off, you can add them all on, or any combination thereof. Okay. Under event color, this is similar to the one that I was showing you in the interface, but you can change the specific event color for this event if you wanted to, so the event would show up as the color that I selected. Reminders, you can have up to 5 reminders here in the system. You have the options of email, pop-up, and SMS text message notification. So since I don't have SMS set up on here, notice it doesn't give me the option, but if I did set it up with this account, it would give me a drop-down SMS function. So it'll text message me from the Google event shortcode, and so it spells GVent, G-V-E-N-T, within the Google Calendar system. GVent allows you to actually text message events into Google Calendar, so that means you can text messages into that. The short code is 48368. So 48368. I'm going to type it on the screen just so you see it. 48368. So this is the GVent Google Calendar event record, okay? And when you text message it, again, you have to enable it in the settings, and I'll show you where. Hopefully we'll have enough time for me to show you where. But in there, you're going to be able to text message into Google Calendar an event. So you can literally say, meeting with Tracy at the country club, Arlington, Virginia, blah blah blah, and 5 p.m. Monday. It will automatically parse that and put it into your calendar. So really, really powerful. It's not going to invite her, but certainly good enough to get the event into the calendar so that you don't forget. Okay. Now below that, so you have all the options of being able to schedule notifications and those kinds of things. It will not allow you to schedule things too far out in advance. So I think if you put 5, yeah, see, I think you can only schedule 4 weeks in advance. So you can schedule up to a month in advance for a reminder. So just FYI, you are limited by that. So let's see if this will give me days. I think it limits you to here it says 4 days, but I think it's more than that. I think you can go to 30 days. 29 days. Nope. Maybe it's only 10 days. I think it wants you to jump to weeks here. But notice, so this is giving me 10 days. Let's see if it gives me 12 days. Yeah. Okay. But know there's a limitation. I forget what it is, but it basically wants you to go and say, if this is actually 2 weeks, say 2 weeks, not 10 days, 14 days. If this is X, use the week, hours function, not the days function. So you don't want to put in 0.5 days. You just want to put in 12 hours. Okay. So just note that that's in the one of the interface limitations, but it's trying to make it as simple for its own servers to be able to effectively send you these notifications on time, and that's why it gives you those kinds of limitations. Okay, next up is show me is available or busy. That basically means in your schedule. If this is just information, this is an informational event. Say, I need to do something at this time and date. I'll just be in my office working on it. You could put yourself as available for someone to say, call you, or for someone to stop in your office and ask you a question. The other side is to say that you're busy, meaning that someone else shouldn't book anything else in that time frame. So it's not something that you would want someone to book time in your calendar for. So you can create your own available versus busy sort of situation there, but that gives you that option. And then next up is default public or private, basically making the event information public or private. So if someone has access to your calendar, you can give them access to just show you the available times available in the calendar. So all of the event information will just say private, but it will show that you're blocked out that time. And then you can make the information public, basically meaning that with the people you've shared that information with, then people will be able to see the details of the event. Okay, so we're going to jump out of this and discard the changes. And Quick Add. Okay, so quickly with Quick Add is, like I said, very similar to the SMS adding. So when you're adding an event using the either Quick Add or text messaging directly into the Gevent code, you are determining the language that you're using not based on anything else other than natural language, supposedly. But for the most part, I'm going to tell you that you should give description, time, and date, then location. Okay? So in general, you just want to follow that pattern, and for the most part, it'll capture. You can also do description, location, and time, and that will work also. I've seen, some things not work, so I just typically do it the opposite way. Okay, so let's just use the example that Google gives us. Dinner with Michael, 7 p.m. tomorrow, and then I'm going to put at, and then my address again, because we're going to meet at my office, and then we're going to walk on to the restaurant. So once I've done that, you can see that Google has added the event to 7 p.m. tomorrow, and it's given me not only the full address of what I've written, the full description of what I've written in Quick Add. Notice it took out the time. It auto-generated the time as being an hour because that's the default amount of time for every meeting I've added to my event calendar. And you can see that it automatically gives me my address pulled in from the event and placed into it with a map link. So if I need to find out where that is, I can click on the map link, and there it is in the calendar. Okay? So that's how Quick Add works. You just type in description, date, and time, at, use the words AT, and then the location, and it will be able to find it. Most often than not, you want to use the city and state also of where you're going to be, not just, so if it's the name of a restaurant, say you're meeting at Applebee's, well, Applebee's, comma, Winchester, Virginia. You want to make sure that you are adding the city and state so that the Google Maps will know which one you're talking about, especially if there's multiples in the general area. Okay, so make sure that you dictate those things, and you're good to go there. I'm going to enable the tasks, so you can see here on the left-hand side panel, I had originally turned off the tasks panel, but you can see that it's there. So all you have to do is just toggle it on and off, and then it's available to you on your right-hand side. Okay, so really, really powerful to be able to add things. So I need to schedule a meeting with Tracy about more calendaring fun. Now the event's there, and now the next time I'm in the calendar, it will remind me that I need to schedule a meeting with Tracy about more calendaring fun. Okay? Really, really simple, right? So I like to have the tasks here for calendaring items, and that way I'm not missing out on those things that I need to do when I'm right here in the calendar, right? Okay, so we talked about these interfaces. I showed you those items. Oh, here, this is really great. So here in this other calendar section, you have the opportunity to go ahead and add other calendars. These are calendar feeds, as they're called, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but you can have lots of different services add their own calendars. For example, Facebook has not only an events calendar that's yours, as well as a birthdays calendar, like birthdays and holidays and those kinds of events that people have in their system. I think it's birthdays and anniversaries. I'm not quite sure, but for the most part, birthdays I know is the one that I use. So you can actually go in here and find that link, that URL basically to URI to the Facebook Friends Birthdays calendar, pop it into this field, hit enter, and it will add the Facebook events into your calendar so that you can see them. You can toggle them on and off, and you can say, oh, today is so-and-so's birthday, or next week is so-and-so's birthday, and it will just show it to you in your calendar. So really great way to keep on top of things right within the Google Calendar interface. Okay, up in the top right-hand corner, you can see that there's the views, and then more. More gives us the ability to print and refresh the screens if we, for some reason, feel like the calendar interface hasn't updated from an event that someone's already put on it from another computer. Click refresh. The print options are pretty good. You can print the calendar in different views, different colors, different font sizes, and different date ranges. Okay. Then under the settings link, settings, we have lots of different settings. I'm going to just go over the settings and the labs because that's really all the time we have for today, and I want to go over some of these more important settings. Okay, so settings under here, we have the ability to go ahead and set multiple time zones, and so here I can actually, language English, country US, and I can of course say I want to be in the Eastern time zone. So I might put this as ET, right? And then I might show additional time zones. I might want to actually also have, say I spend a lot of time in Arizona, which I do. And so I want to put in Arizona Standard Time. And now, again, it's going to now show me both of these time zones as options when I'm in the Google Calendar interface. In the date format, you have both US, or the Anglo version of the date format, you have the European format, and then you have reversed date, which is for computer formatting. So, because everything shuffles left to right, so it'll be 2014-12-31. That'll show up, before 2015-01-01. Okay, so if you want to do it in more, sort of geeky computer format, you can do that. You can do it in 12-hour clock, or you can do it in 24-hour clock, which is also European time formatting. And you can, of course, change the default event duration. So as I talked about earlier, when you click in the calendar or you create an event, it'll automatically set it up as 60 minutes because that's the default time. Here you can change that. So if you want every meeting that's an hour to give you 30 minutes after the meeting, you can go ahead and do that. Now, Speedy Meetings is a lab that was actually bundled into Google Calendar. This means that when you click on Speedy Meetings, you're encouraged meeting efficiency and get to your next meeting on time. But that means that 30-minute meetings end 5 minutes early, 1-hour meetings end 10 minutes early, etc. So for every meeting that you set up, it takes 5 minutes of the 30-minute increment and ends the meeting before that. So if I want a 90-minute meeting, it's only going to be 80 minutes long. So that means that it's going to take the 10 minutes off of the, that doesn't make any sense. A 90-minute meeting should only be 75 minutes. But anyway, that's what it is. Okay, so it seems that over an hour, it only takes off 10 minutes total. So that gives me some time to take close-up meeting notes. It gives me time to get from one meeting to the next meeting if it's within the same office. All of those things. Really, really good tool there for being able to do that. You can start your week on Monday, as I do, so that weekends are together on the calendar. And you have a couple of other key features. You can turn off weekends altogether. So if this is just purely your work calendar, you can go ahead and do that. Under the default view, you can change your calendar to be whatever you want it to be, so day, week, month, custom view, or an agenda view. And under custom view, you can choose what your custom view can be. So in my particular case, I want it to be 2 weeks, so I've set it to 2 weeks. You can set it to just be 3 days, 5 days, whatever you want it to be. And you can create your default location for purposes of tracking where you are. The location also is what helps show weather. So when you type in here that you want to see weather, say I type in that, now it's going to show me the weather for that zip code because that's my office's zip code. It's going to show me that zip code. You can show it in Celsius or Fahrenheit, and I tend to do metric system stuff, so I'm going to leave it in Celsius. Show events you've declined, I'm going to say no. But you have all of these other really interesting notes and tips and that kind of thing. You can see other calendars. And keyboard shortcuts is also great. So you can go ahead and enable keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so I'm going to go back into here just really quickly because I want to show you a couple of other items. Calendars. So here you can manage all the calendars. This is where you manage both creating new calendars and importing calendars, exporting calendars, and managing other calendars of who can see what and so on and so forth. So if you don't want to see the phases of the moon, you can go ahead and take it out of the list and unsubscribe or whatever you might be. Okay, so you can go ahead and do that. Google actually gives you a bunch of interesting calendars you might want to subscribe to, so you can see holidays in different countries, different religious holidays, and so on and so forth, all within this list. And you can also search for them. So you can look under more, you can see contacts, birthdays and events calendar, day of the year. So maybe I want to see what the day of the year is today. So when I look at the calendar, it's going to tell me what the day of the year it is. So that could be really useful. See, today is the 247th day of the year. Very, very cool. Okay, Under settings, we have the mobile setup. The mobile setup is where I was talking about. If you want to SMS calendar events into the calendar and get notifications by SMS, you can use this tool. Under labs, you can enable all sorts of really, really great new functionality. Things that from gentle reminders to automatically declining events, and as I talked about earlier, event attachments. If you enable this, you can now attach Google Documents, spreadsheet, or presentation to your event or upload a file from your computer. That means you can just upload anything to this particular calendar event, and you'll be able to share that with those folks. Now, as it says, guests do not automatically have permission to view Google Docs attachments. You have to share those documents individually, sort of separately from this particular Labs tool. You have all kinds of other really cool functions. It can tell you when your next meeting is. It can tell you whether people are free or busy for lunch or for other meetings. But the Google Labs area is pretty cool as well. So with that, I want to just hop out of here. I've shown you all the big things that I wanted to show you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. I'm going to let Tracy take over the helm here, and I'm happy to stay, answer questions, jump back into the interface if necessary, and go from there.
Okay. Ray, well, we do have one question. Is CalenMob the same as Google Calendar?
No, CalenMob is an application that uses Google Calendar, and so if you're not using the native calendaring app on the system that you're using, you can use CalenMob as an option over it. So there are many different options for calendars that use Google Calendar as its background. Basically, it attaches to what's called the API of Google Calendar. So everything's fed back into Google Calendar. But if on the front side, you want to use CalenMob, go for it. There's WeekCal, there's Tempo and Sunrise, and a new one that I've been playing with is called Timeful on the iOS platform. I'm not sure whether they're Android, but you have many different options for using it. What it does is it connects to your Google Calendar and manages the event in the way in which you want to from an interface perspective, from a mobile perspective, but feeds that information back to Google Calendar.
Great. Another question is SMS texting from a cell phone?
Yes. What's the question?
That was the question. Yes. That was
yes.
The answer was yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yes.
Can you sync multiple calendars? I currently manage 2 calendars per person.
Synchronize them to what? If you could just type a clarifying there, you should be able to synchronize your Google Calendar to your desktop and to mobile phone. It just depends on the application you're using. So if you let me know what specifics, I can be happy to answer that question.
To Google.
Your Google Calendar is attached to your Google account. So as long as you're using Google Calendar on the interface, it's by nature synchronized with your calendar. If you're talking about 2 different Google accounts, you can do that. Go into that Calendars section, so drop down on the gear icon, click on Settings, then click on Calendars. You give access to each other. So you log into one account, you say give access to this calendar, to that calendar, to this Google account. Then you go into your other Google account, log into Calendar, go to gear icon, Calendars, then give access to the Google user account of the opposite account, and then both of them will be able to see and or write to either.
Great. Well, Ray, we don't have any other questions, so I want to thank everyone for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and will be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under Live Recordings and Webinars. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a follow-up email on this webinar with an evaluation link. Please help us to continue to improve our training by filling out that evaluation. If you'd like to fill it out now, I've posted it in the chat window. See you on September 18th for Advertising on the Web. Thanks everyone for participating today.